I'd like to apologize and repent, as this is the first time that we have ever covered anything in the entire Alien franchise. I feel like we owe you probably some kind of megasode or maybe a month where we just have Alien Month and actually go back and start from the beginning. This is strange to start with the latest and only film we've reviewed, uh, but let's talk about that then, guys. What are your thoughts? Or you'd have to rank everyone, but maybe what have you loved or liked or disliked?
I got into alien films because my friends were into them, not necessarily because I had any grounding or background in them whatsoever. So I think I watched the Alien trilogy, I believe. I really love 1 and 2, and then don't remember much about 3 for some reason, I don't know. I may have watched Alien versus Predator. I actually was one of the ones who liked Prometheus, despite being quite a chin-stroking, cerebral type film that didn't make a whole lot of sense as well.
At
So
least you're
unpopular
honest.
opinions.
I liked it, although it didn't make a lot of sense. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I didn't like Covenant at all. I despised it. I thought, why on earth is this made? This has ruined everything. It's ruined it. Oh.
All right, what about you, Thomas?
So embarrassingly, the first film in the franchise I saw was Aliens because
Not uncommon. I've actually that is not uncommon at all. If you were born after it was released, that's usually what a lot of people recommend, and just people dive right into the action of James Cameron's film. So I'm not surprised. That's nothing wrong with that.
that's very gracious of you to put it that way, James. Although I think I went into it thinking it was the first one. And it kind of worked. It kind of works. Like I was able to follow it completely, but I realized quite early on, okay, there's clearly something that's happened to Ripley before this film. So then I went back and watched the original, which is obviously a classic horror sci-fi piece. And then I think I saw Prometheus, or a bit of Prometheus. So those were the only ones I'd seen before watching this new one, which actually worked quite well because it's a direct sequel to the original, kind of set in between Alien and Aliens. So in a sense, you don't need to have seen much more, although it does reference everything. So since seeing Alien Romulus, I've now seen all of them apart from the AVP films. What fascinates me about the Alien franchise is it's not the most cohesive franchise. A lot of different voices have been involved in it, pulling in different directions. And you can read endlessly about Ridley Scott not liking what James Cameron introduced and wanting to push much more existential Blade Runner-y type direction when he did the prequels. Alien 3 and David Fincher and studio overreach, and like David Fincher's basically disowned that film, but it's still really interesting and it has a kind of more gothic feel. Alien Resurrection, which is this really weird bizarre film that kind of has all these tentacles and stuff, but yeah. And then Prometheus and Covenant obviously as those two prequels which Scott tried to pull in that more existential theological direction. But I think so although you can find a ton of contradictions across the whole franchise, part of its intrigue for me is the fact that, like, actually defining what an alien film is, it can kind of be anything in some ways. It's explored so many different avenues. So yeah, it's always been fascinating to me.
Well, that's an interesting idea too. Just when you take this idea of it as this ultimate predator or survivor, and you think about how many different stories could you have. I mean, you could have a story about a documentary on someone who studies sharks, and there could be no horror at all in it. And then you can have a documentary about people who have been attacked and brutalized or killed or mutilated by sharks. Yeah, it's a creature, so you should be able to have almost every genre, except for maybe romantic comedy. That could be the next AVP movie. No, AVP. They fall in love. I have no idea. I guess it'd be A plus P. I don't know. Yeah, but I actually love the trilogy, and so I mean, almost everyone will vouch for Alien and Aliens. If you haven't seen, I'd recommend the extended Fincher cut, which is much closer to the original. A lot of the strange plot holes in the theatrical release get fixed, and I found it an interesting exploration of nihilism. Again, a very counter to the Cameron optimism of the second film, very Ecclesiastes, life is meaningless meditation in the third one. It's kind of a bold subversion. And so especially, you already mentioned the Gothic styling. So Gothic, Fincher, like for me, actually, as a young man, I loved it. And the Prometheus era for me felt like Ridley was trying to do the things you were talking about, but trying too hard. Now, I actually think the AVP flicks, you haven't seen them, they are guilty pleasures.
Okay.
I think they're great popcorn flicks. I think they are fun. And in the same way you might watch the Dark Knight trilogy and equate that with the Aliens films, these are like the MCU, right? It's the Deadpool Wolverine. It's, if you go into it with that mindset, they're actually quite a bit of fun. We hope you enjoyed this snack-sized taste of Popcorn Theology. Check out the full episode using the link in the description. Subscribe on YouTube for more content. Follow and interact on social media to share with others. And remember, you are not a mindless consumer.